I stepped on a knife shark fishing one time trying to release a shark in Florida. And after almost cutting my little toe off, I thought that cliche, there's got to be a better way.
Welcome to today's episode of the Seven Figure Journey podcast. I am one of your hosts, Miranda Dano. Today we have the privilege of having Vance Zahorski, the founder of Line Cutters, as our guest. Welcome to the show, Vance.
Excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Wonderful. Okay. Why don't we start by you just telling us a little bit about your business? How did you grow this thing and get to the spot where you're here in front of us sharing a bit of your story today?
Well, line cutters started off with one single product in one single color, an adjustable ring that cuts fishing line. Came up with the idea after chipping my teeth, biting fishing line the old school way. I stepped on a knife shark fishing one time trying to release a shark in Florida. And after almost cutting my little toe off, I thought that cliche, there's got to be a better way. I've heard people say that so many times before I started my business, and then it happened to me. And that's how Line Cutters started. Basically sold everything I had to chase a dream, moved into my parents' house, made it on 2 nationally televised TV shows, and here we are today. Successful startup business, sold in 12 countries and 6 patents with 1 pending and 5 trademarks.
I just love that story so much because I think about, my friends. I have this friend, lives in Minnesota, fishes all the time, right? Like you just remind me of him. And I just can sort of like connect with that story so well. And I think it's really just brilliant that you were able to have that idea and then actually execute and see it through, right? I don't know, the tenacity and the grit that entrepreneurs have, that they have to sort of just stay after something for so long in order to get their business to the level that they want is admirable, to say the least. So I think that's amazing. At Elite, we talk to a lot of business owners about their teams and sort of like the people part of business and how that all comes together. So I wonder if you have any lessons that you learned along the way before you got your business to where it is now, or as you were getting your business to where it is now. If you have any lessons that you learned about your team that you might share with business owners trying to get to where you're at.
So, as you know, being an entrepreneur yourself, you learn inevitably the hard way, or you get lucky and don't have to learn the hard way and it just works. And I don't care if you're Elon Musk or you have a lemonade stand and you're 10 years old, uh, you're going to learn some lessons the hard way. When it comes to staffing and our team, we actually got lucky and didn't have to learn the hard way. And our success with staffing has been hiring through people we know, and even some super fans or super customers that literally were just our biggest supporters. My director of sales, Darren, I met him at an expo, and he stayed in touch and just absolutely loved our product. He's like, man, I would love to just work a show with you guys. He ended up getting part of our logo, the fish part of our logo, tattooed on his arm, which is pretty remarkable. But it's that sort of passion and dedication and belief in the business that was our hiring pool. And that's really been a key to our success, is hiring friends of friends or supporters or whatever, versus sitting down paging through random applications. Not to say that's not a good way to do it, but kind of like a warm lead versus a cold lead. It's really helped us build a very dedicated, passionate, vision driven group of employees, and that's paid dividends.
I love that. And I'm going to challenge you a little bit on this thing about like how it's just been lucky, right? Because I have worked with many business owners, and they would and some would say that they hired people because they were friends, right? Or a friend of a friend, like people that they knew, and they didn't get quite so lucky in that process. So you mentioned the word vision, and that makes sense for me and what we do at Elite Entrepreneurs. And I wonder if, like, to push back a little bit on that luck thing. Not that I'm saying you're not lucky. You probably are also lucky. And I bet that there are certain things that you're doing as a leader that maybe you were doing naturally without necessarily being intentional, or consciously thinking about them, that also sort of brought the right people to you. Do you think that's true?
Yeah, I think that that would be considered true. And to kind of extrapolate on that whole idea, I think from a global view, from a conceptual basis, hiring quote unquote warm leads uh, is, I think you'd be in a better position doing that in a lot of cases than just paging through cold applications, unless you have a background in hiring and you have software for doing background checks and you have an intensely insane vetting process, which most startups, are just single, LLC, one sole member LLCs don't really have that experience. So, I'm speaking from a startup standpoint. Um, so I think your odds are better of going through people, where can they be trusted, do they see the vision, they already know what you're about. And then I think what the key to that process would be taking a Dr. Phil approach, and that's, you'll always hear Dr. Phil talking about boundaries, like setting boundaries. So when I bring on a warm lead, a friend, a family member, a super fan, I set the boundaries extremely early and I make it black and white. And I tell them, listen, we're a startup. We're not Coca-Cola or Bose or, Apple. So we have a limited budget. um, I really want to work with you, and these are the roles that I need filled, but we have to have a return on the investment that we're investing in you. If it was me, I would just pay you whatever you want, and just, it'd be awesome, right? 60, 70, 100, $150,000 salary. If I had an endless bank account, I would take amazing care of you, but that's not the case. So consider it that the money you bring in is paying your salary. If you don't bring anything in, it's gonna, we're not gonna be able to pay you for very long. But we like each other, we're friends, you want to be a part of what I have going on. Consider yourself a ground floor employee, and let's grow this thing together. And as you bring in more capital, we can scale your pay up accordingly. And if it doesn't work out or budget gets tight, we're having this conversation today because our friendship is first, business is second. But if there's no money to pay, let's get this conversation out of the way. And when you set those expectations and you set that boundary early, then you're just setting yourself up for an open line of communication, and they understand. And that's been everyone I brought on. Darren, I told you, the gentleman that we brought on, who's, became our lead sales guy. He's like, okay, I will work trade shows. I will cold call customers, and, let's do a 3-month trial and just see if I can make enough to stay on. And sure enough, he did. And that, it's been like 5 or 6 years. So
Vance, I love the way you answered that question. I'm glad that I said what I said and that you decided to, sort of expand on it, because we talk about that at Elite, right? We talk about setting the vision, like telling people where you're going and getting them excited to be a part of the cause, which you clearly do naturally. You've mentioned vision a couple times, and not necessarily in the context that we teach it at Elite, but I'm sure that part of the reason why your team members feel excited to go do this work with you is because of the way you talk about it, right? Like you cast That is a good word for me to choose to say, but like
Yeah,
you
love it.
cast a really great vision, right, for your team members, right? Like you are sharing your vision and your idea, and you're excited about the business that you're growing here, and it makes other people want to be a part of it. And the way that you talk about it is in such like down to earth language that I'm really glad you're here sharing this with people. Is I think it's going to resonate with some of like with the right business owners, because when you sometimes when you talk to people about leadership and vision, they it can feel uncomfortable for someone who's a little bit more salt of the earth, right? Like I don't want to have to lead. Like leadership can be a little bit weird and feel weird for people sometimes, and the way that you're talking about it just makes it feel so natural and so down to earth. So I'm glad that you shared that the way that you did. So now that so tell me, how many team members do you have now?
So right now we're at 12.
12. Got it. So now when you think about hiring people, are you still hiring from like your expanded network essentially, or have you had to, put out a job posting and do the whole thing?
So we haven't had to put out a job posting.
No.
We're still hiring. We're opening up a second retail location in Minnesota, and we're looking to have a more formally trained kind of a sales team builder, if you will. So again, I'm still looking for somebody that I know or that a friend knows that can, share some, you know, kind of background of that person. So rather than paying to have a background check through, many services out there, essentially by getting a referral, we kind of have an understanding of who that person is, what their job history's been. Somebody that knows somebody is going to be like, man, they've been there for 8 years and they're doing really well. They've been promoted 3 times, and that's we just choose to hire from within at this point still, but we are kind of expanding the scope to kind of more of a higher paid professional level, I guess you would say.
Yeah, love that. So one of the things that we talk about at Elite is we call them core values. And you and I had a little conversation before we started doing the podcast here, and you were using those terms, I think, in a little bit different way. But when we talk about core values at Elite, we are essentially talking about the sort of common behaviors that show up among your team. And we teach that as part of the interview process. So we teach a sort of candidate assessment that includes going through your core values and sort of making that the first part of the interview process. And I think that that could be a way for business owners to think about how to make sure that the person that's in front of them is the right fit for their team as you start to get to the point where you have to expand out a little bit, like you said, right? Like you're trying to find someone that has more sales experience. Hopefully you can do that within your network, but if you can't, and it's someone that isn't as warm of a lead for your hires, right, you could think about articulating what those things are for your team and sort of doing an assessment of that as part of the hiring process. Does that seem to make sense for what you're saying?
Absolutely.
Yeah, love that. Okay. So what other lessons have you learned along the way? I know I zeroed in on team because we love to talk about that at Elite. You certainly could share other lessons about your team or just other lessons in general that you think would be, I don't know, helpful for smaller business owners as they try to get to where you're at.
Yeah, I think since we're on the topic of vision, I think that is one of the most important things you can do with your team. For me, I consider myself a dream chaser, a visionary when it comes to like, some people are like, oh, you'll never get on Shark Tank. And, I told people, like my wife, for example, I'm like, I'm going to get this on Shark Tank. And I told some of my friends at the job I had at the time, I guarantee I'll get on Shark Tank. And, people kind of laugh it off. And, so I've always been kind of that big dream, kind of go for the gusto, say things that to some other people may seem outrageous, but that I think has also been a really cool aspect and key to our success. So when I hire somebody, or if you look at the posts I make on social media, like I'll call my shots. And I say things like, we are the Yeti coolers of cutting solutions. And that sounds like, oh, this dude was on Shark Tank with a little ring that cuts fishing line. And, I've had that kind of goal in mind, and that's my vision. I've shared that with my team. Well, now we're getting ready to launch a product in the automotive industry. We have scuba divers using our ring for cutting fishing line out of air hoses. It won't cut their air hose, but it'll cut fishing line. We're used in the medical industry. Louis Vuitton's factory workers use our product. I started a DBA called Thread Cutters. So we have an entirely new division of our company for the crafting and sewing industry. We're in medical. They're using it to cut medical material. We're in GE Aerospace is one of our customers. So, if I didn't have that vision of inventing cutting tools for all the industries, and was just like, I'm in the fishing business, if I didn't have that vision, and if I didn't convey that vision to our team members to say, listen, you're getting in on the ground floor. This is where we're going to go. And you can play a big role in this. Then all of a sudden that you see their eyes open up and they're like, man, this could be really big. And they end up really wanting to be a part of that success and that growth. So when you share year over year numbers up 30, 40%, they're like, we're up 40%, not this company I work for is up 40%, or we're getting into the medical industry, not I'm just punching the clock working for line cutters, and that, I think, like what you said, vision, sharing your vision is for your team is insanely important.
That's so cool. And I love how you use the word convey, right? Like it's not just about having a vision, it's about learning how to convey that to others in a way that gets them excited about coming along with you on the journey, right? Like being a part of that ride. And I wonder if you could articulate to our audience how you were able to do that. Like, how do you think that it came to be that you sort of knew how to convey your vision to others? Because some people struggle with that. They have an idea and a picture of where they want to take their business, but it doesn't necessarily always come as natural for everyone to articulate it in a way that motivates and inspires others. Do you think you could try to call out how you figured that out or how that's true about you?
So I think, really the number one key is you have to be, um, for example, if my dream or vision was to make $10 more next year than this year, and then I tried to, convey or share that vision, it's not going to do anything. So I think just looking at the ground floor, you have to be a dreamer, and you have to believe in yourself, and you have to think big. If your vision is small, it's going to be tough to get people to buy in. So I mean, you could peel the onion back all the way to, I mean, you have to believe in yourself, and to be able to have a lofty goal. And then if you believe in this vision that's far fetched, or a ways away, all of it stems with what your vision is. So really, that's the baseline, is you have to have your own vision, and you have to be shooting for the stars, and you have to believe in it. You can't just arbitrarily make up a vision. It just kind of happens naturally. I don't know if there's like a magic wand, but once if you have that lofty dream chasing vision, then when you talk to your employees or your staff, a key is like, hey, this is our baby. Like in some of my younger employees that work my retail store, they'll have an idea, And I say, I'll put them in my shoes, and I'll say, okay, one of our employees' name is Travis. He's here today. So Travis will be like, hey, we should sell this, or we should do that. And I'll say, all right, Travis, so you're writing the check, and you mentioned two things, and our vision is to do this. You know, if this was Travis's line cutters, what would you think the best move is? And so, I try and have them, I'm like, treat the store like it's yours. How would you tell me how you think we can hit the next level? And so now it's forcing them to be the owner of the company. And so then they start thinking like a business owner, and then they start maturing without them even knowing. And then little that trickles down into like walking in the front door and seeing trash in the parking lot. They're taking owner, like, oh, I'll pick that up, this is my store, and I don't like seeing trash outside. And okay, that peg hook needs to be straightened. And hey, I noticed we're out of this product. I'm going to be missing sales if I don't have that stock. So I need to make sure Vance orders. And, that just trickles down. So I think the message in sharing that vision is really getting them to feel ownership of the vision and of the company's purpose. And
So good.
yeah.
Really good. I'm going to steal that trick. I'm going to steal that from you. The trick of asking them to think of, like, okay, let's pretend you're writing the check, right? You're the person calling the shots, and here's where we're going. How would you go about that, or what decision would you make? I love that. And we often at Elite talk about, helping your team members think like business owners. We talk about that all the time. And to just literally, like, hey, imagine you're in that spot. Just to pose the question in that way, I feel like is a pro tip when you think about, how to get your team to just think about your business like they're business owners, just to think about the business on another level, just to level up in some way the way they think about it, right? So I feel like that's a really sort of like, and idea, that example could play out in so many different conversations in every single industry, right? So good. Okay. These are so good. I want to ask if you have any other sort of things that come to mind about leadership or your team before I move us on to the next thing.
Um, so I think one of the things that was hardest for me to learn was delegating. Uh, Everybody knows that's one of the hardest things you could do as an entrepreneur. Um, but I've learned to delegate, which has been instrumental in allowing me to do product development and big picture stuff. But what I've learned is the more I delegate, the more responsibility the employees feel, and the better they've performed. So it's kind of counterintuitive, but I'll give you an example. So we have several different DBAs, thread cutters, line cutters, pro fish gear, and then there's so many social media platforms, which are all crucial to be successful in today's world for a product-based business, selling on multiple e-commerce platforms and in a retail store. So I needed help, and I said, "Hey guys, I'm gonna ask you to post 3 Instagram stories a day." And I showed them how to do it, and I wasn't even really concerned with how well they did it. I just needed, like Gary Vee says, content, content, content. Um, so then they ended up doing a better job than me, and I consider myself really savvy when it comes to social media. And then I learned that my young guys and girls were more trendy and not so old fashioned like a 47-year-old is. Um, so then I noticed we were picking up followers from the younger demographic, and then the people posting, my employees posting, actually started having fun. And when we got like a new shipment, they're like, dude, we got to do a post on that. So the posts were actually happening faster than me doing it, because they were excited to have something new, because they were like, oh, I can't find, I don't want to keep posting the same stuff. So that's just one sample of getting them involved on a, more than just punching the clock and selling stuff on the sales floor. Like, hey, do you know graphic design? Could you do some signs for me? And not forcing them to do it, like asking, like, hey, I need help with this. And it's been just monumental. Like, just get, if they want it, give them as much as they are wanting to handle.
That's such a great example. It's a really good example. And as I see it, you set the vision, right? Like they know what it's like to be a part of line cutters, right? And what you're going after, what it feels like to be a part of the team, what you guys are doing together. And then you enable, like you gave them clear parameters around what like the end game was, what the goal was, what the measurable thing. So 3 posts a day, super simple example, like 3 posts a day. And then just have at it. Like go figure, like go be you and figure this thing out. And I'm here if you need help, right? Like I'm over
Yep.
here if you need support, but just sure, go figure it out. And then they did even better than you would have anticipated. Like you checked all those boxes as we would teach it. And I think it's, I don't know, it's also, I often bring that conversation back to you're not only like sort of offloading so that you can go and do more high value things for your business, but you're also sort of doing right by your team members by enabling them to really own what they do, right? And really think about it and be creative and be themselves as they go and, get the work done, if that makes sense.
Yep. And I think a major key, and I think a lot of times business owners may miss this very key aspect, is there there has to be a carrot or um, a, a pat on the back, or you have to show how they're impacting the business. So, for example, another employee, Damien, dude, your post just hit 30,000 views. That was the highest one of the month, man. If I looked on Shopify, and we sold 5 pink line cutters rings because of that post, or we sold this. So, man, I just want you to know, like, you single-handedly literally caused somebody to go to their wallet and or Apple Pay and order something. Like, that post alone, you were solely responsible for that, and that's why I asked for your guys' help, and these are the rewards. And by the way, you had the most views this week, so good job. And I mean, that's where you get the deep buy-in, where they really buy into the vision and they know that they single-handedly are making an impact. And that has to be followed up. If you do start delegating, you have to show what their effort is, what is bringing to the table, and how it's impacting the business.
That's huge. And again, a really great simple example. But you're right. Team members want to feel like they're contributing to something bigger than the clocking in and the clocking out, whatever the task is at hand, right? And not just team members, just everyone, right? Humans want to feel like they're contributing to something bigger than themselves. And as a leader in any capacity, you have an opportunity to make that possible for people. And I think it's wonderful the way that you're thinking about it. So I'm glad you shared that. I want to switch, like pivot just a tiny bit and ask something that might not be as common for people to ask about when you're talking about your business and how you grew it. But I wonder if you could share a little bit about how your like personal or family life has sort of changed as you went through these years of growth, right? A lot of entrepreneurs, especially when you're in the early years, struggle with balancing all of the things. And I wonder if you could, share a little bit about maybe how that's different or maybe a lesson you learned, just something helpful for our listeners around that.
Yeah. So I tend to be brutally honest when I have been flown out to Lincoln, Nebraska to speak at their college, their Shark Tank Summit, to middle schools, grade schools. During COVID, did some interviews and stuff like that. So I'm a big dream chaser, one life, one chance, seize the day, chase your dreams. That's my message. But I feel that if you weren't honest about the not so positive things, then you would be misleading people, and that's the harshest part of being an entrepreneur is what it does to family life. And I one of my messages, especially for kids, is surround yourself with positive, supportive people if you want any chance of succeeding. Um, uh, I could name off probably 10 different really good friends of ours that have their relationships ended in a divorce from entrepreneurship, 100%. And that's the ugly truth of the matter is your significant other it's crucial that you are 100% behind them and they're 100% behind you, because odds are it's I mean that's what can happen. Look, I've been, we've had some, very close calls, just being quite transparent. But communication pulled us through, and we're stronger than ever now. But getting on the road for 3 months out of the year, kissing my wife and kids goodbye, and literally getting in a car and not returning for 3 months. I did that for 5 consecutive years. That's hard. Uh, Sometimes there's a belief where you care more about the business than the family, which is actually not the case. But to the person that's not the entrepreneur in the family, they don't realize what it takes to get your business off the ground and be, like you said when you opened the call, the tenacity, the whatever it takes mentality. That takes a toll. So that's the ugly truth, and communication is absolutely key. And boundaries up front, like, hey, you can't be gone for X amount of months, or all that needs to be communicated ahead of time, and there needs to be a word or phrase or something that, without getting into a big heated mess, just it could even be like you're out at the mall and between trips and they give you a certain look, or just a note under the door, whatever, an email, a text, just something you have got to communicate 100%. That is the 100% part of having a healthy and being able to weather the storm of entrepreneurship, because it will take a toll on your family. I don't care who you are.
Yeah, I love that honesty. I really do. And the advice to communicate and have clear boundaries, right? And then continue to come back together and get back on the same page. I think is beautiful advice for our listeners for sure. So, as you continue to grow your business, right? Like, I imagine there are all kinds of other ideas that you already have that you aren't even sharing with us yet. But as you continue to grow your business, what do you think is the next sort of obstacle in front of you? What's the next big challenge or the big roadblock? What's the next puzzle you're trying to figure out?
So any true startup is going to face the number one challenge, and that's capital, cash flow. Um, in today's world, insurance rates are through the roof, employee taxes, inventory tax, having a good attorney, utility bills, shipping, fuel, every aspect of business is so astronomically high. So when you take all of those costs and then you look at growing a business, so for example, um, four, we have 6 patents on 4 products. Well, each product has to have a 20 something $1,000 tool made for injection molding, and then you have to have a minimum order of the factory for each color. So, and then if you're expanding your colors for one single SKU, while you're paying a patent attorney and an engineer to design the product, the CAD drawings, the patent attorney to file the intellectual property, so you have protection, the prototypes, the research and development, you have all that going on. What's happening is as you expand, your costs are also expanding, and then to grow, for our case, a retail store, you have to have more employees to be able to check in more product and to sell to more customers. And then you open a second store, you have the cost of that store plus then all the new insurance and all the inventory to fill the store while I'm working on a new seatbelt cutter and the patents, you know what I'm saying? So what happens is if you truly are a scaling business with double digit, triple digit year over year growth, you capital is your best friend and worst enemy all at the same time. So then you have a choice. Do I raise capital through a venture capital firm, an angel, through crowdfunding, or do I go through the SBA or whatever the case is, or do I bootstrap it and sell everything I own, or so you really have to have a roadmap of of capital, and banks will not lend money when you need it. That is I don't care what anybody tells you. When you need capital, banks will not loan it to you. When you don't need capital, they will. So if you have this big vision, you have to if you think big, you have to act big. And if you act big, you have to put these steps in place and be ready to go big. And capital is one of your biggest challenges.
That's great. So, what do you think is, I don't know, just your biggest piece of advice for people when they think about navigating that?
Yeah, so obviously going with the least expensive option is best. Holding on to equity if you can. We ended up closing our deal with Damon John from Shark Tank, and we negotiated our deal to not give up any equity. So I'm still 100% equity owner. I've used Kickstarter on a couple of occasions. I've used an SBA program, and I've used Shopify's uh, kind of like a cash advance system. I've used personal credit cards. So literally being scrappy, tenacious, being smart, and not just trying to get a bunch of cash, giving up all your equity just to get the business going. And that does a couple of things. One, it helps you understand the value of your business. You then potentially can get more when you need money if you are going to hit the next gear like we're getting ready to hit. So, I think there's a misconception that, oh, I'm a startup. I got to go do a seed round or a series A, series B, and all of this. And you give up, whack off 60% of your equity, and then you're stuck with 40. And then the investors want a quick 5-year exit, and, that's it. So, for me, I think it's being scrappy, being smart, and looking what that financial cost is, and just literally whatever it takes. Where can I get cash that's not going to kill me? And that's the approach we took. But the bottom line is you have to have that stuff in motion months ahead of time. It can't be like, holy cow, I just sold out of my 5,000th whatever widget and I need to double that order, but I only have profit from 5,000 units. So I don't have enough to buy 10,000 units, but to handle this trajectory, I need, you have to be ready.
That's awesome. I think incredible advice for smaller business owners for sure. Love it. Vance, I want to ask one more question before I let you off the hook today. When we were speaking before the podcast, you mentioned having what you guys call core values for your business. I know that you do a lot to give back to causes that are important to you, and I'd love it if you could share a bit about that too.
Yeah, so in today's world, a lot of CEOs and entrepreneurs are exposed, meaning, you know, the current customers, they want to know where their dollar is going. Um, and so it's important to give back. If I happen to believe in giving back, that's the way I was raised. If you weren't raised that way, it's something that you need to consider if you're a business owner, because the trend is people want to know where their dollar's going, and that it's you're doing good for the for society in general. It can be a little overwhelming because as you grow, or in our case, making it on TV, people think you're a trillionaire and everybody, wants free stuff. So you can't make everyone happy. And it's hard to just like, well, what causes should I pick? Just I'll pick one out of a hat. The best advice I can give you is look at your mom, your dad, grandma, grandpa, brother, sister, best friend's family, and if you can't think of some, try and have some tie-in to your values, of you or your family. For me, my biological father was a Vietnam vet. I vividly remember reading a letter that said, when he put me up for adoption, that he was having these dreams of his gun barrel melting while people were attacking him, and he couldn't shoot. Like that, just sticks in your mind. It worked out really well for me. He was brave enough to, put me up for adoption, and my father now, who is I mean, I couldn't have it. I got very lucky, but that is one of the reasons why we give back to veterans. My grandmother had breast cancer, so giving back to breast cancer awareness programs, and then I absolutely love children, and just our youth. Seeing a child catch a big largemouth bass or their first sunny is unbelievable. And for selfish reasons, that's my third kind of core value. So thank you for asking, but definitely just advice to any entrepreneurs out there. Um, you have to you have to think about helping out and giving back, because people want to know their dollars going towards a company that likes to give back. That if they have a choice between buying from you and someone else, and you're helping society, I promise you, you're going to get more sales. And then if you have trouble getting behind something, just look in your life or in your family's history or friends, and there's, I promise you, there's plenty of amazing things you can get behind.
I think that's wonderful advice. And I think it was well timed for you to talk about those things right after we discussed, how to raise capital and get scrappy, right? Because there's a bit of abundance mindset at play here too, right? Where it's like, hey, get scrappy and get after it, but also, like there's enough to go around here, right? We can still share, we can still make a difference. That you don't have to feel like the rug's going to get pulled out from underneath you at any point, right? Like there's a bit of that at play for you.
Absolutely.
Love that. Before I do the wrap up, Vance, do you want to tell people how they can reach you or find your products?
Absolutely. So we're on Amazon now in 12 countries, which is really exciting. You can order through TikTok Shop, Facebook, Google. You can go to our website, which would be epic because we make more money when you buy from our website. So linecutters with a Z.com is would be great for us. Or if you're in the sewing and quilting industry, thread cutters with a Z.com. And yeah, that's if you want a really awesome gift that'll save you time, save your teeth, prevent you from cutting yourself, or you're a scuba diver or any of those things, just yeah, get a line cutters. And if you like watching a really cool journey, check us out on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. I share stuff I probably shouldn't be sharing, but it's really allowed people to see the journey and feel like they're a part of it. And if anything, if you ever need help, whatever, literally just shoot me a DM. And I can't tell you how many people I've given patent tips for just in just general marketing strat stuff for free. So
Love that. Love it, Vance. All right. Well, that wraps up today's episode of the Seven Figure Journey podcast, where we explore the ins and outs of the seven figure journey. Vance, thank you for being a guest on our show today. I really have enjoyed this conversation and have loved having you. For those of you listening in, I hope that you will share, like, and do all the things to make this episode more available to other seven figure business owners out there. Keep striving, keep learning, keep caring, and keep pushing towards your goals. Until next time.